Just think of it as the rough draft of the podcast world. This is the Newbie Writers Podcast with your hosts, Damien Boat and Catherine Bramkamp.
Hey, this is episode 157, I think, of the Newbie Writers Podcast. And it's Christmas time. All Christmas cheer. I don't know. Do you get into the Christmas cheer, Catherine?
I am on the fence with Christmas cheer. We were just talking before the show. I as the mom and the wife role, I had to do all of it, and I don't know why that is. I don't know why we have to divide that out. But my husband was working, and so I got to decorate the tree, get the gifts, stuff the stockings, tell the boys at about December 12th, I started threatening them that Santa would not come and I was going to give all of their gifts to children who deserved them. That was all about me. So I was never, truly excited about the holidays.
Yes, I don't really get into it. We've got a special guest on today, Rachel Neighbours.
Hi.
Hey, I want to ask you, do you get into the Christmas spirit?
It's hard to say. I love the way it looks. It's so sparkly and pretty, but it's sort of like looking at a really beautiful evening gown. It's gorgeous, but where would you wear it? So you're very happy to watch other people prancing about in them, but you're probably not going to go out and spend a lot of money on one yourself. Yeah. That said, I do take a lot of I have Christmas cheer by proxy. I love to see other people being excited and having fun. And this year I'm exchanging some art cards with some friends of mine who I've met over the year. It's really nice because I have these little cards that I'm hanging on our tiny little twig tree. It is actually a pair of twigs that we found in our neighborhood. We decided that would be our tree this year.
Oh, that's very creative. I like that.
Yeah, we do Christmas, but we do it in our own way.
That's very creative. I will say I was having I'm learning how to make the holidays kind of our own, just like not as creative as you. But once we were picking up our child who was coming back from, let's pick someplace. I think he was coming back from Scotland to spend the holidays with us. And so we were waiting at SFO International in the arrivals. And while I was waiting for Michael, I watched people greet their family members as they came off the planes. And that was so cool. That was so heartwarming. And I thought, oh, all right, this I can get into. This is more, what the holidays are, which is, being together with your family or friends. Just the ones you like. If you're not with the family that you like, then it's just damn excruciating. So
that would be me.
People who have to be with relatives I'm not fond of.
Well, actually, I think I have a couple of relatives I'm fond of, but a good deal I'm not fond of. And so my Christmas is rather sparse in the relatives department, which is a mixed blessing. Because on the one hand, I don't have many people to worry about not sending Christmas cards to. But on the other hand, I don't have a lot of people sending them to me either.
Meh.
Yeah.
Well, Sharon said to me, we've got to get some, decorations for the front of the house. To which I said, how come? And this is, if someone can send me some websites if this does exist, but I'd like to buy Scrooge stuff. Like an old...
Or Grinch stuff. I bet you there's Grinch stuff.
Yeah, or something like that. It's all very happy and sparkly and reindeer and lights. And I want to have like a cranky old man sitting at a desk by candlelight on the front, handing out
counting his money.
Yeah, and then you could have treats for the kids, little lumps of coal. Just, I want to do. How come we don't see that? Surely.
I don't know. I think that there's some sort of international ban against it. Well, let me ask you a question on the lights. You're like 2 days away from your longest day of the year, and I always look at the whole light phenomenon in the Norwegian tradition, which is you need to put lights up so that the gods don't, miss you during the longest nights of the year. What, do you have your lights on for like 4 hours between 10 and 2 in the middle of the night?
Pretty much. I think that if the International Space Station went over, they could see us. Because it's still daylight by the time like my boy goes to bed at 8. It's pretty much like cranking daylight outside.
So it almost, what do you do to manage a British run, Northern European really holiday? How do you manage that when it's summer? I mean, I've been to Australia for Christmas. It was like one of the best Christmases I ever had because you were dressed in bathing suits and Santa hats. What else do you guys do to celebrate?
Well, when it comes to things like decorations, it's fairly typical of everywhere else, except we just have them on and you go, oh, they're on, aren't they? And then when it comes to things like food, a lot of us tend to do like cold, like Christmas lunches. So you might do a turkey or something, but a lot of it's in platters of cold ham, salads, that sort of thing. Because
similar like the July food that we would consider picnic food.
Yeah, we have a picnic Christmas in Australia.
So do Australians put out lights during the longest nights of the year? I mean, I'm assuming that you've got equally long nights. If you've got such short ones, you must have the roles reversed at one point. I always thought Christmas lights were kind of like humanity's little attempt at reversing seasonal affective disorder.
I don't know. I can't comment because I'd be asleep. But we tend to.
You're just hibernating in July, right?
Yeah, we don't get into doing any lights in any other time. But I was looking on YouTube this morning because it's covering everything. These people that do those ornate light shows.
Yeah.
I think those poor neighbours. Like, yeah, some of them were just enough to light up a small football stadium.
Oh, they are. In fact, there's a show called. It was a Christmas light burnout, there was some sort of reality show, which is Christmas light contest. And a local guy in the town right next to me won the grand prize.
Really? Could you see it from the town where you are?
Probably could see his house from a satellite.
See, this is it. And I get a few comments made in passing. Well, I run an audio-visual business. Why don't I have any decorations out the front? Right? That's because for that exact reason. Because I would want to have something stupid like a big LED screen on the roof, a big swear word across the top. Anyway.
Well, why don't you put a big LED screen and you could just play How the Grinch Stole Christmas and A Christmas Carol? Just loop that. And that would take care of the whole concept for you.
Or just play Frozen.
No, there you go.
Yes.
And then when Disney arrests you, it'll make the news.
That's right. But if I hear Frozen one more time, I'm going to go ballistic.
I have nothing but Frozen objects all wrapped up for my granddaughter, so we're all about Frozen in my house.
I really like that story. I mean, I'm sure it's not the greatest story that was ever told, but it's certainly one of the better stories told with lady protagonists in recent decades.
Well, we watched it. My boy got up after about 10 minutes, went, nah, I'm going to go watch Minecraft.
Because he's a boy.
That's right. Anyway, and I don't know, the whole buying gifts for people, it's becoming harder and harder. Most people just give me a voucher, just give me a gift card.
Right. And then that's sort of like, then you're just looking at like a heavy sigh, an obligatory thing instead of really thinking about the person. Yeah, it's gotten a little commercial in that regard.
Well, Sharon.
This is why Joe and I are going off to a vacation for Christmas, because every year we don't really get each other anything, or if we do, it turns out to be something that we probably should have checked out from the library first because the book isn't quite what we thought it would be. So better to just do Christmas travel.
It's actually a smart idea.
You're right.
Because the problem I have, I'm a tech nerd, running a tech nerd business. So anything I want, the business just buys. And
it's like, oh, I need a new device. Expense account.
Right.
Exactly. And then then I take it to work anyway because that's how my life is. So it's all claimable. But then I said to Sharon, what do you want? What do you want for Christmas? So we went through some ideas. She said, I could use a new watch. So I went and had a look at some watches. And I don't know, we tend to be a bit practical. So I rang her and said, look, on your lunch break, can you go to these stores, have a look at these watches and let me know which one you might like. So she went and did that, came home and said to me, so I bought a watch. I went, right. So how much were you thinking of spending? You know it's bad if that if the conversation is precursor with how much were you willing to spend, she told me, and I said perhaps I could contribute to that. So, yes. Anyway.
And then she has to wrap it and then look surprised on Christmas because we've been known to do that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, look, I'm getting you this and we know it fits, so I'm going to wrap it and you're going to look surprised. And that's how this is going down.
I know, but hey, we get trained by getting gifts from our nanas like that, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Now,
so let's talk about writing. We're done with Christmas.
Yep.
Let's talk about Rachel, Rachel, I'm sure that everyone has asked you if you are ready to be on Portlandia, but you just moved to Portland, the land of alternative living situations. How do you like it up there?
It's very alternative.
Yes, it is.
I like the weather a lot. I know it's odd to hear that somebody might move to Portland for the weather, but I'm really a kind of a colder temperatures person, and my husband doesn't like ice, so Portland's like the one place where our lives can intersect happily. And it's also, I think, next to New York, one of the most European cities in America as far as public infrastructure goes. I don't own a car. We sold both our cars when we moved here from the Southeast. And we get by with our bikes and public transportation, and it's wonderful.
Very cool.
What do you mean by alternative living? Help me out here, Americans. I'm thinking of like hairy people living in tents.
I'm going to give that to Rachel.
Right.
So in Portland, alternative living applies to everything: your job, your sex life, your location. There are people who live in boats that are made of several boats tied together that they turn into little houses with water slides and things. There are people who ride double-decker bikes. There are people who have relationships with more than one spouse. It's pretty much Portland is whatever you want to make out of it.
Right.
And I've heard it called the place where young people go to retire. And I have to say, I'm here, and I think that is quite true. I'm a very ambitious person, and it really was hard to choose between Brooklyn or Portland. But Brooklyn, because I wanted to start my own company, I realized that moving to New York might actually cause me to give up and go in-house a lot sooner if things went tough. Whereas in Portland, you just lay low. The living expenses are pretty minor, and everyone's very helpful. And worst comes to worst, there's a great trade economy in Portland where you can be like, well, I'll offer you some services for this if you'll give me your services and that. So Portland's really set up to support freelancers and individualistic people. That said, unless you have a job title that gets you a job in-house fairly easily, like you're a lawyer or you're in web development, you need to have a job lined up before you come to Portland, because so many people want to be here that finding a job after you get here tends to take a little while.
So how long has drugs been legalized there then?
Oh, only a few weeks. I haven't seen any stores yet, so I'm not sure that they're officially legalized. Personally, I'm not sure it really matters to me, but if it keeps the state from locking people up for relatively minor offenses, I'm all for it.
Because if you're going to tie 3 boats together with a water slide, then seriously. Anyway.
Yes, that's Portland.
That's Portlandia, most definitely.
Now, the reason why we wanted to have you on the show is Catherine came across one of your blog posts back in August, or your blog post somewhere. It was posted up. I don't know. I didn't ask.
It was on Medium.
Yeah, about don't do what you love, which you sort of go into a little bit. We all say that you should do what you love. Why do something that you hate? And I'm a big, supporter of doing what you actually love. Where did this stem from? What sort of inspired you to sort of post this up to say, don't do that. Do the opposite.
Well, I was following a person on Twitter, and they tweeted one of those wonderful aphorisms that we like to print up on inspiring posters and hang in our office when the going gets bad. And it was, do what you love and the money will follow. And I can tell you that is patently misleading.
It is.
First of all, what you love might be worth nothing. For instance, you can love knitting tiny sweaters for squirrels, but I can guarantee you that there may be only 1 or 2 buyers for such a thing in the entire world, and they're not going to pay you a year's livings for a squirrel sweater. So you have to find a way, if you love knitting tiny sweaters for squirrels, to make more money doing that. I mean, it may be the thing that you're most passionate about, but you're going to have to be flexible, because if people don't see value in what you're doing, or a lot of people are doing it and thus the value is not really there because of supply and demand, you're going to have to be willing to be more flexible in that definition of what you love, or be willing to look for other things. And I feel like people fetishize this do what you love thing so much that they hang on and cling desperately to the thing that they love, instead of being open to loving other things or finding something else that they enjoy equally as much that people are willing to actually pay them for. No one on this earth is entitled to make squirrel sweaters for a living. You're not born and you're given a certificate that says somebody will pay you to make squirrel sweaters.
I don't know.
So you have to be willing, when you realize no one's going to pay me for squirrel sweaters, to see if maybe there's some other line of work or some product you can diversify into that people will pay you for. Like, I don't know, knitting sweaters for dogs.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm one of those, I think you should do what you love, but you need to be willing to do it. You should be able to do it for free in that sense. Like, it doesn't bother me how much I earn. I have people say to me, talk over sort of business lunches or whatever, going, "Oh, how much are you earning? You should be putting your rates up so you make more money." I said, "But I'm not in this to do that." And oddly enough, the more that I'm just happy doing what I'm doing, the more work I generate, which in a roundabout way makes more money.
I think that is, in many cases, that does happen. But I also think you're in a rather privileged position. There are people who do not have the means to not freak out, to lean back and take their time and wait for the money to quote unquote come. For some people, the money never does come, either because of location or connections. And for some people, they don't have the time to wait for it, especially if they are poorly served by society.
I think so. I agree with that. I mean, I am in a position where I'm quite lucky that the company that I started, I only have 4 other competitors, and currently 3 of them are doing such horrendous work, it's not funny. So then, yeah, I'm in a
There's a bit of luck in there.
Yeah, big time. And I agree with that. There is luck. But I also think it comes down to a bit of attitude too. So the way you sort of put yourself out there. So I always try and put myself out there as very professional. The way we look, the vehicles we drive, whatever, they have to look the part. But you then have to deliver as well. You can't just have a flashy vehicle and then be late, do a poor job, that sort of thing.
Right.
So you have to be invested in it. And that's, I think, the problem, is that someone might be doing what they love, but then they don't really get the overall professionalism side of things as well. And
perhaps. But I would argue that even if you wear a business suit while you're knitting your squirrel sweaters, it won't stop there being a lack of demand for squirrel sweaters.
Yeah, I think you have to be realistic too. Like, yeah, sure, you might love it, but if you're in a market that is either swamped or there's not enough of it, then yeah, you should be looking at something else. I mean, originally, for me, I wanted to be a landscape gardener. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I did that for a week. And I went...
Oh, long term, good.
I thought, this is rubbish. I'm exhausted. And so I thought, well, I do like doing that, but I don't like it enough to do it forever, and just jumped into something else. I looked at what I like doing, because it'd be very rare if there was someone that had one thing that they liked only. I mean, I was looking at, the stuff that you do. Sure, you like the web comics and drawing and that sort of thing, but there's other things that you do that you enjoy doing as well.
Well, let me give your audience a little background here. Back in, let's see, from like 2000 to 2007, I was an award-winning cartoonist, and I did very well for a cartoonist. I had a weekly comic with a website. It was syndicated, so I had weekly income. I was making a lot more than the waitresses in my area. I lived in rural Virginia in the mountains, and I was very successful to the local standards. I worked for myself. And I really only knew and cared about comics. And I did web development mainly to support that. Like, I would install OS Commerce, which is a shopping cart system, so that I could sell printed mini comics to people. And I traveled the world, well, not the world, I traveled the East Coast, going to conventions, comic book conventions, selling comics, promoting them online with my own newsletters and things, and doing social media before we even called it social media, basically just following my fans and interacting with them on the platforms that they used. Mm-hmm. I was very serious about this, and I gave it my all. But even for being an incredibly successful cartoonist, I wasn't able to afford the health insurance I needed to get some surgery. And now, of course, somebody out there is going to shout out, but Rachel, if your society in America just had socialized health care, you could have kept doing comics. And that is true. I probably could have kept doing comics and could have been very happy doing them and be even more famous and have had even more awards for doing them. But because I didn't have any health care and I needed to have some surgery done, I had to look at my skills and say, well, what else do I like doing? And I said, well, I like coding. I spend an awful lot of time in the code section of the Barnes & Noble, and I should be looking at the anatomy reference books. So I hear people will pay for this code and web design stuff. I'll do that. And I ended up in that world, and the difference in how much you make per hour, like I could spend 70 hours a week working on a comic. You'd have just an obscene amount of time. I don't even know if you can physically spend 70 hours a week working on a comic, but I would spend a lot of time working on a comic during the week. And I realized that I could make the same amount of money in a couple of days worth of web development. And it was kind of hard to ever go back to comics, because once you get used to, not having to think about whether or not your check is going to bounce when you're shopping at Target and, eating nice food, it's hard to go back to the artist's struggle. There's nothing noble about that. You should be happy in life. The struggle is over glorified.
Yeah, I think Americans have got to sort of, they're over a barrel a bit, the whole medical thing. I just don't understand it because I'm not used to it. If I'm sick or I need surgery, just go to the hospital and it's free.
Yeah, you were very lucky.
So
I'm so, like, if I ever had the option to just vote and make it a reality for all my countrymen, I would be like waiting at the polls in a tent overnight to make sure that I could get that vote in. Well, they just haven't put it up for vote yet.
It just makes no sense to me. Like, and I've been to, I've had minor surgeries done. If I go to a private surgeon, so what you deem as the health insurance stuff, you can actually sit there. They have a requirement, I think, to do some public for free. And so there was one guy, I had an injury to my finger at work, and he said, "All right, well, we need to do this, this, and this. It could cost you about $2,000 to have that one finger operated on." And I said, "Well, how about you do it through the public system?" And he sort of sat back and went, "Oh, okay, well, I can do that." Oh, all right, awesome. Booked it in. You wait a little bit longer, maybe a month longer, 2 months longer. And just went through there. I think it cost me $200. There you go. And that was just paying for the booking of the room. So, it just does my head in when I hear these people who are in the States going, "Oh, I'm so sick with the flu at the moment, but I can't go to the doctor because I can't afford the health insurance." I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?"
Right.
It really is problematic. It keeps good hard workers from doing their best and being healthy. And it's very frustrating. We could probably take up the entire rest of this podcast complaining about how bad it is economically to have such a sick workforce and not look after your own.
Strange. Yeah. And I just see a big thing about this Obamacare is so wrong and flawed. I'm like, well, at least he's trying.
Hey, it's a step in the right direction, a lot more than anybody else gave us.
Yeah, that's right.
Kidding.
But I think
there's also, when you talk about going, one of the issues of the lack of healthcare, universal healthcare that the states have, and it's essentially socialized medicine, but don't say that because people get really worked up about that socialized word. But I thought,
because they don't know the difference between
doing a great job. Totally, I'm all over socialists. I think that's the way to go. But if you have your healthcare tethered, just like what you found, Rachel, if it's tethered to working, it makes we end up with a very stagnant workforce because people can't risk leaving a quote sure deal to be creative, to do the next thing or create the next innovation because they need to stay where the healthcare is. And so what we've done is that we've pushed.
It's bad for entrepreneurship.
It It is. And
like the only people can physically afford to be entrepreneurs are young men who haven't run into any medical difficulties or had children yet. If you are a woman, if you are a mother, you're not going to get in. There's just no way it's going to happen. You're either worrying about lady problems, which cost a lot more to take care of than worrying about man problems, or you're worrying about, your children, and you have to be super, super responsible. So it's like this narrow stripe of people in this narrow age range and this narrow able-bodiedness that can consider being entrepreneurs. And I gotta say, the best innovations anybody ever comes up with, they always come from out of the left field. They always come from people who see a need and they fill it. And if you have all the same people with all the same problems trying to fill those needs, you're not solving everyone else's problems.
Yeah.
Well, just move to Australia. You'll get it sorted out.
That'd be fun. I like Australia.
I do like budgies.
Not budgie smugglers, I hope.
Oh, no.
Google budgie
Do
smugglers.
people smuggle budgies out of Australia?
No. Budgie smugglers is a whole different thing.
Okay.
Which
don't go there.
I think, go Google image that. There's a load of Australians now going, oh man, that's like the second show in a row you've done something stupid. Speaking of which, I didn't send you that thing about rissoles either. But
look, my God, these are swimsuits.
Yeah.
I don't even understand this joke.
Think about how you'd smuggle a budgie.
I don't. Yeah, and I just got it, and I don't really want to go any further. So let's talk more about writing.
Yes. Well, this is
yes. Let's move along from that.
Yes. Way to make your guest awkward. Now, I think the overall thing of this, because writers are in the same boat as like what you were doing. You're running your own sort of business. You're successful with webcomics. You're creative. It's no different than a writer sitting here plugging away in front of their PC. We talk about this all the time. You can't really just dedicate your life to it. I mean, I like writing, but you don't see me saying, that's it, I'm doing it. Especially with such an industry that is completely swamped with every self-publishing weirdo out there.
Yep. Everybody wants attention.
Yeah, but did you find that as well when you're doing sort of the comics? I mean, you've still got to write them. You've got to come up with a bit of a story arc or beginning and end, that sort of thing. Did you find that industry is a little bit swamped now thanks to the internet, that anyone could just scribble something down and go, oh, there we go, it's a webcomic now?
Yep. And you know what? The great thing about comics is people are a lot less forgiving of a terrible webcomic than they are of terrible fiction. A comic that does not update regularly or has terrible art or a terrible story will not gain as many followers. So it is a somewhat meritocratic society. It's not perfect. I was just having a talk with an old hat at webcomics who's still plugging away at it. And so things were very different back in 2007. We didn't have Patreon. We didn't have we didn't have Kickstarter. We didn't have any of these things that might have actually helped me. So at best, you had like a donate button with PayPal. Right. So now there are all these ways for creators to be like, oh yeah, and if you guys could give me $600 a week, I'm going to release all this new content, or we're going to publish books, give me the money up front, and then I'll have it printed. So it's made it a lot easier for people to cater to their following super fast. Like I took years to ramp up to printing. I needed the capital to be able to invest in that. And so she was talking with me and she was saying, I feel like there's all these young people who come in and they're like, oh, I'm so new and I'm just getting started, and people shower them with love and attention, and I've been at this for years and nobody remembers me anymore. So it's not perfectly meritocratic. The new and the shiny definitely, especially if they know how to utilize the new tools that are available, can definitely vault over the old and the talented. But that is just, it still must be said, people will only read a comic if they get some amount of pleasure out of it. So if you are writing a terrible comic, you're not going to have many readers. There are a lot of people trying to make money making comics. Fortunately, most of them are terrible.
Well, this is what I was going to ask. I'm asking questions that we ask of established authors as well. It's the same sort of thing. How do you know that what you're sitting there drawing and creating is worth being out there? It's no different than a book. you're plugging away the story and you send it out there. How do you know, and how do you consistently then try to be funny in the comic? I mean, that's, most comics are pretty positive. So do you sit down then and try and sketch out some rough ideas and think, oh, that's pretty funny, I'll make that one next panel?
Well, you need to have a good sense of humor, that's for sure. Now, this is assuming you're writing a funny comic. Not all comics are funny. Some of them are very serious. Some of them are sweeping epics like Drow Tales that have been going on for years. And you wondered, did the author actually have an ending in mind when they started?
Yeah, well,
but so the question is, you're saying, how do you know if what you have is any good in its genre?
Yes.
Well, number one, run it past other human beings who aren't your family members and who will be honest with you.
Yeah.
These people can be very difficult to find in any field, unless you are a web developer. Web developers love to give each other a smack on the face for writing bad code. It's something I appreciate about this industry, because in art, people tend to be they're either jerks or they're too nice. Like, oh, I didn't want to say I didn't like it. I think you did a great job on the coloring. And it's like, no, I need you to be honest. So you need like an honest source of feedback, whether that's a crit group or, in marketing, we might call it a focus group. Find some random people, not even necessarily authors, but people that you can test it on. And the best way to know if you're going in the right direction is, will people pay you for it? If people will pay you for your work, you're onto something.
But then doesn't the art style also dictate somewhat what genre you might be in? I mean, you're not going to have stick figures having a serious conversation or,
Yes, you do. It's called XKCD.
Oh, well, there you go. But on the whole, though, wouldn't that art style dictate a little bit?
Not really. I mean, sure, you're going to have trouble telling a sweeping epic with large-eyed, adorable kittens, but it has been done. I mean, even Cerberus, the major protagonist of that story, was some sort of an animal, not an actual human being.
Mm.
I haven't read it because I hear that the author is terribly misogynistic, and the whole thing was about his breakup with his ex-wife. And I'm just like, nah, I don't want to read about your drama, dude. But it's very well respected in the graphic novelist community.
See, yeah, okay. So then, with that sort of thing, people get very sort of hung up on anime, graphic novels, web comics. I mean, you must offend a lot of people just by doing what you're doing in anyway. You come across, I don't know, I see it on the internet all the time. That's manga, that's not this and that. Like, oh, fuck off, it's a comic. Yeah. Anyway, I let one go.
In every industry. That is in web development too. Oh, you wrote a framework in JavaScript. Well, it's not a very objective language. You should totally have been using blah, 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 blah. Everybody thinks that they have some better tool or better approach than everybody else. And you know what? I got to tell you, that is the sign of an amateur. That is the other sign of an amateur. As soon as you start hearing that come out of somebody, just tune them out, because whatever they're saying, they're just pulling it out of their ass.
Yeah.
Real people with real feedback don't judge each other based on tools or styles. They judge each other based on content, and they don't do it to rip each other apart. They do it constructively. That's what you're looking for when you want to actually have feedback. And I know saying don't pay attention to those haters is kind of like it's a privilege/easy thing to say, but it is the best advice you can take if you can pound it in. Find out what is the marker of a person who has useless feedback, and then tune them out, because your signal to noise ratio will just be too much to get over otherwise.
Well, that's what we often ask. I tend to ask, because I try and fish for poor reviews of our guests, just to call out the reviewer. And in your case, you're very successful in what you're doing. You would have had negative reviews, surely, just by the nature of the net. How did you deal with that? Did you initially sort of call them out and say, hey, don't be an ass?
Well, it's something I've gotten quite used to dealing with. Back when I made comics, I dealt with a younger crowd. So I would, every once in a while, somebody would be like, Rachel, some people on this forum are saying not nice things about your work. And I'd be like, oh, so that's where that spike in visits came. I go over, I might read some of the stuff, and then I would just, and I remember one time somebody had told me about this on my forum back when I had forums. And I was like, it's okay, man. They're just giving me extra hits. And girl.com pays me based on, like that's going to be my negotiation come end of year for a higher weekly rate. And somebody over the place where they're having the negative conversation was like, oh, she's not biting. I guess you just can't provoke people anymore these days. And it's seriously like there's what is it? No such thing as bad publicity. Yes. Now sometimes I'll write something or I'll provide something. Like I gave a workshop on web animation when I was in Europe, and I got really great reviews, like private feedback from everybody. But there was this one person, and they were very negative, like to the point where I was like, were they even in my class? Because this doesn't sound like me. I'm going to assume that they have some kind of an internal problem, and that this isn't about me, this is about them, and I shouldn't take it too personally. I read it, I filed it away, and if other people bring up similar complaints, I'll take it seriously. But otherwise, I'm just going to think that this problem is some chip on their shoulder. Like maybe I reminded them of an ex-girlfriend or something. You never know where people are coming from. You can never truly know what people are thinking. You can just kind of infer. So if I see the same complaints coming out of a lot of people, I might start taking it seriously. But typically, I will only take people seriously if they're acting like adults.
And that's why I call them out.
Good job.
Yeah. So when it comes to sort of structuring the creativity side of things, do you just sit down and write notes first before you put everything down and draw it up, that sort of thing? Would you just flow with it?
It's interesting because I've got like 2 different modes that I'm running in. When I wrote that article for Medium, it sort of all tumbled out of me at the same time. It was really crudely written. I didn't even bother to make any illustrations for it because I was like, this is just tossed together. Nobody's going to care. But I had all my brain was pumping out A waves. It was, I was just really in the zone, and I cranked it out and I posted it and I walked away, and it just kind of blew up when I wasn't paying attention to it. Now I do have a process that I do, which is where, I'll write stuff, I'll print it out, then I'll like do layouts and thumbnails, even for my talks. And I'm giving them, my talks have storyboards so that I know like this is the section we're coming to. I'll illustrate it with this. This is what I want to prove. And those things also are often met very positively. So basically I'm always making something, whether it's deliberate or whether it's spur of the moment. I'm able to rock both modes.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah, some people sort of get stuck in their ways with how they do it.
I think it's important to be open to both.
Yeah. Now, I was Googling around, and I noticed you have a podcast, don't you? Or
I did.
You did. What happened to it?
Are you talking about Infinite Canvas?
Yes, Infinite Canvas, which is a cool name, by the way.
Thank you. I totally borrowed it from Scott McCloud. He keyed the term Infinite Canvas for the direction that webcomics would go in the future. It's a great screencast, and I enjoyed making the episodes that I did, but I had to take a break for it when I started traveling and speaking in Europe. And also, I got to say, I was only getting $25 a screencast from my Patreon page, and I didn't think enough people were giving me money to do that work. So I thought perhaps my time would be better spent producing media for some other distribution method.
Well, how did you find, though, going into that sort of webcasting, screencasting sort of thing? I mean, we don't do video here only because Australian internet's so bad. I think the hamster's half dead.
Well, and then I don't have to put makeup on to do the podcast. There's a lot of bonuses, a lot of pluses.
I understand. I'm doing some video recordings for a training course, Practical Cartooning for Technical Folk, that I'm giving in January. And every day it's like I put on the same black turtleneck and I do my face, and I have to record when the sun is at its brightest, which is like for 2 hours here in Portland. Yes. Videos add another layer of complexity.
But oddly enough, because really I watch Scott Johnson and all of his podcasts, and he also videos them, and it's basically him in his office just sitting there talking to his guests. And I sort of objectively looked and thought, why would anyone want to actually watch this? And I'm still not sure, because I find myself watching them, fire them up on the screen. It's just him standing there talking. Someone that doesn't even look at the camera. Is it just I don't know, maybe we're just curious as to how other people go about doing what they're doing.
I think people like to see each other's expressions. I know when I see myself in the camera playback, I tend to mug it up a bit more for the camera. And if I were just speaking into the microphone, I end up with a much more monotone voice. But when I'm looking at myself, it's like a parakeet with a mirror. Chirp, chirp, chirp.
I'd like to move into, doing similar sort of thing with the webcam for the Google Hangout. I think it'll add a bit more depth to it, but I need to move from my garage because it looks like I live in a hobo's hovel.
Yeah, lighting is a problem. If I film after dark, the colors in my room are just terrible, and I don't want to give people a bad looking screencast.
Yeah.
So there is a lot more involved in it. And if you have other people speaking, you have to have the headphones on, and then you want to make sure your headphones aren't too dorky.
I was going to say, and then the headphones ruin the hair, and now I've lost 50% of my guests. So there's some advantages to just doing it without anybody seeing you. Also, a lot of people listen to us in their cars and, on the move. So watching isn't necessarily what they're all about.
Oh, there'd still be the audio component of it, but I just don't want...
That's right. And you can distribute both as a podcast and as a screencast, so you'll be in two completely different markets with that approach.
Yes, but
don't bring that up. I'm going to be facing the new year with a new hairdo at the rate we're going.
Well,
hey, there's nothing wrong with a bob.
Video.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a bob or a beehive, but I just don't want people to see the lawnmower and the pile of cable I have behind me at the moment.
We'll have to
just hang a sheet over them. You'll be fine.
Yeah. And then people are like, "Oh, you threw a sheet over your lawnmower."
Yeah.
So no, I'll sort something out later on, but that's fine.
So, Rachel, what would you say, just more in the light of, rather than doing exactly what you love and expecting or waiting for the money to follow, what would you say to new creatives, people who want to have a more creative life and would ideally like to get paid for? Should they decouple that dream, or what would your advice be?
I actually have, I think that it's important to have these interests. Let's say that I think a lot of web developers would be better developers if they had an interest that was directly opposite their job. For instance, my background in comics makes me one of the best communicators in my field, both on stage and when I'm posting an article, when I'm illustrating it. My background in storytelling just gives me a leg up over my competition and helps me talk better about, this is why we should use this in the user interface and not that. So it's not like you can't have two disparate passions and have them supplement each other. As a web developer, I was able to support my comics as an income, and as a cartoonist, I'm able to support web development as an income. It's the two are not mutually exclusive. What I would say is, if you're thinking, I would like to get into this creative thing for a living because I hate my day job and I don't want to do it anymore, you need to find a better day job. You should definitely pursue your creative interests, but you should also try to find a day job that makes you feel like a better person all over. One that also would benefit from your creative interest. For instance, if you love to write, perhaps finding a day job that requires copywriting skills is a great thing, like working for an advertising agency. Even just in the office can be a bit more fulfilling use of your time than, say, being a manager at McDonald's with those same skills. And I'm just throwing out some examples. I'm sure that your audience has all kinds of different interests and different problems with their current job. But I think that you should first worry about having your plan B. This is your backup. This is your muscle. This is worst case scenario. I've got this behind me and I don't hate it. Because if you hate the thing that's behind you, sometimes you can start hating the thing that you love too, because it can't support you the way the thing you're coming from does. And you don't want to be, the person who gave up a comfortable lifestyle to marry their true love and then finds out that their true love isn't the person they thought they were. And so they're kind of marooned in this world that they didn't really want a part of, to use a kind of a streetcar named Desire metaphor here. Try to find something where no matter what happens, you're going to love your life, and try to let the two feed off of each other.
Well, I've got nothing to add to that. That was
good
well
advice.
said. I think that's advice for anyone, writing or not. Now, where can we find all your stuff out there on the nets? If people want
to find all of my stuff at rachelnabors.com. That is RACHELNABORS.com. That is where I keep all of my weird little interactive experiments and my articles and my talks and all that stuff. But if you'd like to see just the cool things that I publish, you should probably go to my company at tinmagpie.com, like the metal and the bird, where you can see some of the interactive stories that I tell. And if you really want to read my comics, check out rachelthegreat.com.
Well, there you go. Tin Magpie. How did you come up with that name?
Like all startup names, lots of nights of going, this one's it. No, I'm doubting it again. No, this one's it. I threw a bunch of words around. I'm a big crow fan. I love corvids. And yet there was a children's storybook publisher called Loud Crow. So it's like curses. Somebody's already got a crow name. Well, what's my second favorite corvid? It's a magpie. And I like the idea of a little wind-up magpie. So
it is pretty cool.
It's cute too.
Yeah, it's very cute.
My only complaint is you can't get stuffed magpies. They're like no magpie toys, no magpie statues. Like, when I have to outfit an office, decorating's going to be hard.
Maybe have a look in Australia for that, because magpies are sort of basically the main bird we have here.
It is, but completely unrelated to corvid magpies.
Oh, well, magpie.
One magpie is much like the other, right? It's a black and white bird. How can you go wrong?
That's right, and it swoops you when it's breeding.
I'll tell you what, the Australian office can have them.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're thinking big, are we? Worldwide tin magpie conglomerate.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, it's good. Now, we've got a couple of things we're going to move on to. Feel free to stick around if you've got time. We often give out prompts to writers there so they can sort of kick off their creativity. Did you want to read this one out, Catherine?
Sure. This came from, again, the holidays can inform so much, sometimes for good, sometimes for evil. So here's an idea. Those of us who have very happy childhoods have to make up a certain amount of angst just to get our real emotions into our novels. We can't all be Frank McCourt and have a terrible Irish childhood, so we have to make crap up. So go back for your prop. Go back and write up a happy childhood memory for your main character. Just go with happy. I believe that joy can inform a character as well as tragedy. Could it inform something for your character? Could the joy then be twisted on a fictional basis, since it's already too late for you, all of you who had a happy childhood? What can you do with that happiness, and then how can you switch it around so that you can create some angst and some drama?
I think I'm getting heartburn. Way too overuse of the word happy there. It's giving.
Sorry, happy.
Anyway, let's do a tortured sentence.
Let's do that.
Next time, don't put the wrong emphasis on the right syllable. Tortured sentences. Yeah. Now I feel a bit more balanced. From the Salt Shaker newsletter, how did you come across this from the First Presbyterian Church of Hamilton?
There was a list annually. These lists circulate around with wonderful, badly punctuated sentences that create really wonderful images, and so that's where this came from. It's just from that list, and so this was pulled from a newsletter. Oftentimes, we're just in a hurry and we knock things out, or people aren't aware, and so this one, the sentence is, the ladies of the church have cast off clothes of every kind, and they can be seen in the church basement on Friday afternoon.
Right. Well, that might be just enough to get me into the church.
That sentence is terrifying.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Well, when you think about the age of the ladies, it can be pretty awful.
That's fine. I'll line on up and go, apparently we're taking... You rock up nude. Wonder how far you get. Hello, ladies. Apparently we're casting clothes off.
They're casting clothes off and they can be seen in the basement.
Wow. I'd hate to think what the Last Supper is going to be like. Now, let's do a word of the week. So this came from a word a day from Anu Garg, and it's fungible. That's a rubbish word. That's made up. That can't be a real word. Fungible.
Nope, fungible is a real word.
Which means interchangeable. Right.
Well, look at the notes. It says when you lend someone, now think about this, when you lend someone a dollar bill, you don't care if he or she returns the same bill or a different one because money is fungible.
Right.
It's interchangeable.
No one's going to use that word, though.
No, it makes you think of mushrooms growing in your backyard with too much rain.
Pretty much.
But that's something else to consider when you're writing is you may have the quote right word. It may be the correct word, but if it engenders a whole different vision or when you see the word, you think of something very different, you may want to reconsider that word regardless of whether or not it's, correct. You don't want to be arguing with your editor saying, no, that's a real word. Because if the editor is saying, oh, it sounds like they're growing mushrooms in their pockets, I'm not getting it. If they can't get it, then your reader doesn't get it, and it'll slow them down and start asking you questions on your forum.
Yeah, that's right. And the Americans, you guys have got paper as your dollar bills, like your money.
We do. Not like you guys have that great sort of plasticky stuff, so if you jump into the ocean, it doesn't get all mushy.
What happens, though, if you tear off a corner of a $5 note, can you still use it?
Yeah. Some people won't take it, but if you take it into the bank, let's say a little corner's torn or there's some damage, usually you want to take it into the bank and then they'll exchange it out for you. Now, when I travel abroad, we try to get like brand new $20 bills because they'll take money that U.S. dollars can be used in exchange, but they want really clean new ones. They don't want dirty used ones.
Huh. It's just because I remember when I was in that country pub, someone had to pay, and he's like, "Oh, it's $10." And he handed over a $10 note, which is, like you said, everything's sort of a plasticky coated thing.
Yeah.
And it was missing quite a portion of the corner, and so he took this note and he says, "And I'll need another $1." And the guy's got, "Why?" He goes, "Well, you've only got like $9 worth of a note here."
That was one colorful evening you had.
So he threw it back and said, "Give me a real note, please." But yeah, I just thought it was strange. I mean, what a dumb idea. You've got a currency that's made of paper.
It's very tough paper. It's cotton based. So you can't, believe me, many of us over the years have washed a lot of money, literally rather than figuratively. And it comes out. It just gets a little softer. Right. But we don't have a lot of coins because we just don't. We have dollar coins and we don't use them. We like the paper.
Oh, do you have coins, like dollar coins?
Yeah, we have dollar coins and we do not. They are. It's been a hard sell.
Oh, we've got our dollar coins and our $2 coins.
See, because we won't bring them abroad because we don't trust that they're real money. Oh, and I have a Portland story. Okay, so we're on the tram going from the airport to downtown Portland because, Rachel, you are correct. They have public transportation from the airport to downtown Portland. How marvelous is that? Mm-hmm. And there was another couple on the train, and the gentleman turns to the conductor who was taking our tickets, and he has coins in his hands, and I look over and they're gold color, and he turns to the conductor and he said, "Well, I just got these coins for change, but they don't look like real coins. Now, can I use, are they like, special Portland money? Can I use them in Portland? And the conductor didn't, he just was totally mellow, and he just said, oh no, you can use these they're worth $1 each, and you can exchange them. It'll be all good. And my husband and I are thinking, we knew Portland was interesting. We didn't think they had their own token system. They do. It's called Etsy. But the conductor finishes up with this couple, turns to us, and we couldn't resist. We had to ask, and he says, oh, he had a whole bunch of Susan B. Anthony dollar coins in his hands, and he'd never seen them before. Wow. That's how bad it is in our country.
Right. You people are strange.
Yes, we are.
We may have poisonous snakes and spiders, but you guys are weird. All right. Rachel, is there anyone?
If it wasn't for you, it wouldn't keep me honest about my country. So I am so happy for your serious feedback.
Yes, and actually, it's quite interesting. I don't know if you've heard that we had that issue in Sydney.
Yes.
And I found it quite interesting to know that there was a lady on Twitter that came out with that "We will ride with you" hashtag. So rather than us coming out, Australians coming out and saying, "Right, that's it, war," I'm like, yeah, we'll get on the bus with people from those nationalities. There's no dramas with that. Just dispel the situation. And the world has turned around and said, see, Australia is quite mature. But what I found interesting was one of your American senators came out within about 2 hours of hearing it saying, this is why we need to go to war. And
what?
He's like, this is why we need to, use force to help our allies in stamping out terrorism, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, oh, America.
I think if our congressmen and if our government didn't have all their heads stuck in echo chambers where they just heard their own thoughts, some of the eye rolling from other countries would be very good to see.
Yes, and because we're about to do our shout out section, I'd like to give a shout out to that retard of a politician. I can't remember his name now, but he's not hard to find, who came out and the day after that tragedy and said, I'm going to be lobbying for Australians. Citizens need to be armed, follow the American model, because this wouldn't have, hang on, he said this wouldn't have happened in Texas.
He hasn't Texas been to a Texas standoff then.
I'm like, yeah, look, there may not be hold-ups and hostage situations in Texas coffee shops or cafes, but you guys tend to have a lot more school shootings than we do.
Yeah, we lose a lot of young people to gun violence.
Yes. So he's just been...
We've talked about it before, but for anybody to say that they want to be just like America, he clearly has not done his homework.
Yeah.
I mean, idiot. I'm sorry. We've just had a movement and are still having movements about people shooting African Americans seemingly at random.
No problem with that.
Yeah.
And on one hand, this is a racism issue, but one can also say it's probably also a gun issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the politicians, they normally argue with each other. They all went, huh? It's just...
That's definitely a Baru moment.
Yes.
Jeez. So anyway, we won't get too political. But Rachel, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Oh my God. Wait, no, you go first. I got to think for a moment.
Oh, come on, that's what we do. We deliberately do this.
I've got a couple of shout outs. The first one is I get many feeds on publishing, and one of them is from the Book Daily Author Update. And I had to share this. So all I get, of course, when you get these in your email, all you get are like the first paragraph, and then you click to read more, right? Mm-hmm. So this article says, starting out as a writer, 5 things you should know. Number 1, very first thing, and there's only 2 lines after it, but it says, success is not immediate. So thank you, Book Daily, for pointing that out.
Right. So, yeah, shout out to them.
And while we're at it, Future Girls, get the book, write a review. I need reviews for Future Girls. So if you are so inclined and you want to get it free because you can't afford the download, send me an email and I will send you a copy at no charge, just because you're a listener at Newbie Writers.
Cool. So your podcast at newbiewriters.com. It can be a blank email. I don't really care. Just put in the title, Catherine's book, Future Girls. Put free stuff. I don't care. And then we'll send you a copy.
Yeah, we will. Thank you. I appreciate the help ahead of time.
All right, Rachel, you've had enough time now. Come on, shout outs.
That's all you get, Rachel.
All right. I know who I'm going to give a shout out to, because she participated in my holiday art trade so that I can hang art cards on my tree. The wonderful illustrator Jennifer L. Meyer. She is such a sweetheart, and I've been watching her making her own dreams come true, doing independent illustration for books and for stories of her own. They're very cute. I love her work, and she's been a lot of fun to get to know this year. So I just want to give her mad props for actually sticking to doing what she loves and doing it well.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Well, thanks for being on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been fun,
Rachel, and doing this.
All right.
Always a pleasure to be at service to the creative community.
Cool. Well, next week we don't have a show, do we?
Nope, because it's a holiday, and I suspect no one would be listening anyway.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So this means we got to leave by wishing everybody a super fantastic holiday, whatever one they are observing.
Yeah.
That is true. And wish them and say happy 3 more times just to annoy Damien.
Happy.
Joy, happy, joy. So
happy.
For those people that will enjoy it, enjoy your Christmas break. I'll be working. And we'll see you in a fortnight, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So until then. Have fun.
Until then, happy Hanukkah, happy Christmas, happy everything.
Yeah, that.
Your book starts here on the Newbie Writers Podcast.